Yo.
Morning.
Katie Dowd on the call. Oh my God.
Hello.
Good morning.
God. It might be record breaking, some of these people. All got full house here.
Full house.
Pretty full. Pretty full. There he is.
Hello?
You sure?
Can you hear me, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Look,
I'm in my car. You fucked up my routine today.
Sorry,
is
mate.
it? All right. Well, feel free to sign off, Steve.
Mads, am I in?
Vesic's very
You're
good.
in.
I'm in. Oh. Hey.
Steve. Steve.
Oh, Ben Gibson's there as well.
Something, Ben.
Yeah.
Oh, we're eating. We're on.
Yeah.
Mel's on her cardio. Come on, girl.
Go on, Mel.
Demi's on.
Oh.
I've had you already.
All right, babe.
Yeah, it's the first one I've been able to come on to, so I'm excited.
Get stuck in. Better make it a good one then. Make sure you come back.
Abby's on the bacon and egg bagel for breakfast.
Not for long. Ha!
You can keep that, babe, until you get bored and want oats. I'll let you.
Never getting bored of bacon and egg for breakfast.
Wait until you're hungry enough and you will.
Yeah.
I love that you're in your pajamas, Abby. Like, we've just cooked in pajamas too.
Where the fuck is everybody else? Don't make me shout at them on the WhatsApp group. Oh, I think that's Aisha.
Hi, she's on.
Who is Zoom user? Reveal yourself.
It is Aisha, isn't it?
No, I think Aisha is like iPhone 27 or something. Stuart Denny's in. Your lot's timekeeping's dog shit.
What are you talking? We were late, babe.
I was just saying you guys were late. I was sitting there
Yeah, I was
waiting.
the first one to say.
Oh, here we go.
Innit?
I was on my
Come on,
cardio.
gang,
Like,
get the tank. Get her. Pitchforks. Wow.
Wow. Oh, we've got crew. The same.
So we'll give it a minute or two and then we'll get stuck in.
Has anyone got anything exciting to tell us?
How is everyone?
Good.
I've got a lot of housework to do before I become a cripple tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Laura's having an operation tomorrow.
What?
I've got a trapped nerve in my elbow that makes my left hand numb. I've had it for 6 months. And I've been waiting for this operation for 6 months.
Oh, no. That sounds awful.
And I think they're going to put me in a full arm cast
Oh my God.
for 3 weeks.
Well, I started with Mads with a broken hand, so it is doable. I had a
Yeah,
plan.
so I'm planning on
Demi
training
lost
next
about
on
10
Friday.
kilos with a broken hand. She did well.
You're right.
Mouse, how are you getting on?
Oh,
Mouse
fucking
is
hell.
new to the crew this week. Is she brave enough to speak up?
Speak now for a hold your peace.
Feel like she's not.
Sorry, David just cancelled.
Matt's put her on the spot. Still tanned up, look.
Matt's on.
Yeah, all right.
How you feeling, mate?
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Of course, he
Yeah.
was burger last night, didn't he? He's feeling wicked.
Oh my God, the beard's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beard is
I
gone.
was just looking at your photos, Matt.
Yeah.
Hair doesn't look too healthy, but the body does. You look. Do you know what you look like? You look like Cindy Lou off The Grinch. Right, everyone, just have a minute. Have a minute.
Oh, fucking
Oh,
hell.
no, you just showed it.
Cindy Lou.
Good shout.
Don't pretend that's
Uh,
not what your ponytail looks like in the
my,
morning.
my banner is atrocious.
Right, should we get stuck in? It's not bad like this for a Sunday morning.
I think it's a very good tune-up. I'm happy. Go for it.
Let's share the old screen.
Wait a minute. Start. No, wait a minute.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, I want to go to the beginning.
Yeah, I'll just share it and then go
Messing
off
about
it.
on my system, man.
You weren't doing anything.
Ah. Sorry, guys. 2 seconds.
My signal might go in and out because the signal is shit.
Better not. Cool. All right, sweet. Do you think? Sorry, guys. Ta-da! So, everyone, why? Can everyone see the screen? Put your hands up in the air like you just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So, why are we talking about fatigue today? Why is this a massive, 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 important topic to discuss?
I'm
We're all fucking tired.
Because you're all fucking battered. Yep, that'll be one of the
No,
reasons.
Mel,
why.
you're just dieting.
No, that's just life. So guys, we wanted to pick up on fatigue. I think it's a super important topic. One of the massive topics that we've discussed is deloads and why that's super important. I think everyone coming off the back of that Zoom specifically, or everyone that has watched it has actually been superb from an approach standpoint with their own training, which has meant that their progression has been definitely more optimal.
Definitely more aware.
You're definitely more aware, and I think your ability to apply yourself in the gym, but also communicate when you think that things are potentially in need of a pullback has been fantastic. And obviously that's why we do these Zoom calls. We want to make sure that you guys are more educated, so you're in a position where we can maximize what we're doing. However, fatigue is the thorn in everyone's side, and will very much determine your ability to progress. And I'm going to give you some real insights as to why the whole macho bullshit of I'll continue, yeah, examples, all of that good stuff. The PowerPoint was made by myself, so obviously it's unreal. But why in which the macho approach to it's fine, I'll carry on, may actually be the reason why you potentially won't progress or won't achieve as much as you want to achieve. And almost that idea of, well, I'm putting a lot in, but getting very little out. All right. So we'll get stuck in after that fucking enormously incredible introduction. So guys, we want to go through, if I do say so myself, we want to go through definitions first of all. Okay. Terminology that I think we should all be aware of. So overload, starting off, is acute disruption to homeostasis. Okay, so weight training and stress specifically. Okay, in terms of what we're looking at with overload, we know that how we train is progressive overload. We try and achieve more than what we did yesterday or last week or in last session today. Yeah, so all of you will have logbooks. You'll all get a number of reps on any given set at any given weight, and the idea is to progress and to drive forward for protein synthesis response. We want to try and beat that number, i.e. overload. Yeah, so that's number one. Fatigue, reduction in capacity to produce performance. Okay, so strength and matching or beating numbers. So again, this is going to be the main driver and key variable to manage in your ability to move forward, because if you don't manage fatigue, you are not progressing. Recovery is the return to previous performance output or better prior to disruption. Okay, so being in a position where we can go from hitting a set for a certain amount of reps at a certain weight and then being able to come back to your next session and actually match that number or even beat it. Okay. And then last but not least, is adaptation, which is processing functional improvements to performance. Water. You can tell, forget that. Functional improvements to performance. So again, the ability to actually improve on any given performance that we've had and jotted down or shown previously. Okay, go for it, babe.
So in terms of the definitions and stuff, what we've just said is that we're looking at how we can manage this fatigue and how we can manage things like ensuring that we are continuing to progress in terms of overload, in terms of adaptation. And the way that we do this, this is written not a bit confusing.
I can say it.
Overload. Yeah, because that doesn't make sense. It's not how it's written. Like overload.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? How can't you read that? So, guys, overload is the result of fatigue. So, fatigue and overload come hand in hand, right? When you create overload, you create fatigue. When fatigue is matched with time, it creates recovery. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, that's what I want, but it
Cool.
just wasn't written
Sorry.
how I said it.
No, all right.
So in terms of once we've created overload, so when we're in the gym and we're progressing in numbers, we are increasing our reps, we're increasing our weight, we're driving this fatigue, and you'll feel tired either immediately or the day after or the day after that. Now, this is about how we then continue to overload, but in a way that we can recover. So you, for example, can't do 10 sets in the gym on squats one day and then go in the gym the next day and do 10 sets of squats again, because you've not recovered from the fatigue which you've accumulated in that session. So, for example, that fatigue that you've accumulated in that session, you need to match that with some time to allow for that recovery before you can go in to try and do another 10 sets of squats. So you cannot do these things too close together, because you're not going to be able to create any more overload, because you're not going to progress in the gym. So once you've got that fatigue from the training that you've done, you need time to recover, essentially. Yes? Perfect. Okay, so changes in terms of your training and this overload, and this is why you need recovery, do not happen while you train. And the thing is, a lot of people, there's a misconception that people think that they grow when they train, they change when they train, because they're increasing the weights in the gym, they must be growing. When you actually train, you are not changing. You are actually causing disruption to the muscle, you're causing damage to the muscle, you're causing the need for the muscle to repair. So actually, you don't change or grow or adapt until you come out of the gym, and then after training, this adaptation starts to occur. And this is why recovery and rest is so important for actually growing and adapting, because it doesn't happen while you're in the gym. So people that try and train every single day thinking they're going to grow more actually never give their body the opportunity to actually recover and adapt and change, because they don't give themselves the opportunity to recover. So we need to make sure that we manage that fatigue, allow our body to recover, and then we can go back into the gym and do the same thing again.
Okay, I'll take this as me. So guys, output dictates recovery, and recovery dictates adaptation. Okay, so quite simply, when all of you started with raw coaching, you would have been given a training plan, I hope. That training plan would have had a certain amount of reps and sets. Some of the examples, and you know what, I'm going to pick on some people because they're here and it makes a lot of sense. For a good example, Katie is one, Abby is another, Cal is another. When we picked up your preps last year, some of you were put on immediate rest days. Some of you were given devolumized approaches to training straight away. And the reason for that was because we needed to accumulate enough recovery to be able to actually get you in a position where you could productively move forward in a training block. Yeah. You're all nodding at the screen, I hope. I can't see you. So when we talk about your stimulus actually dictating your ability to recover and driving fatigue, what we're talking about is having a baseline of volume set from a biological individual, from an individuality standpoint, is actually pretty easy. We would work on, let's say, working sets of 15 per muscle group per week. Yeah. If you're someone who can actually respond to that very, very well, and it creates poor stimulus, then we're not going to see any adaptation. As a result, no growth. If you're someone who is in the floor after every single session, Cal is a perfect example of this. And do you know what? It's not to do with volume specifically, it's his approach in training. Tom is also another pain in my backside. I can see a young face on the screen, so I'm not going to swear. Hello, monster. So these two boys are two individuals who attack training with so much velocity and aggression that not only are we causing an enormous amount of muscle trauma, we're also causing a lot of systemic stress as a whole, central nervous system damage. So these are guys who've had to have their volume pull back an enormous amount to be in a position where they can go in and they can still, again, follow the plan, capture and adjust to biological individuality. So Tom and Cal messaged me and they say, Corey, I trained legs 3 weeks ago, and since I've just laid in bed. I'm like, okay, well, that's a problem. We potentially should change your training to be in a position where they can go into the gym, they can attack their sessions, they can drive stimulus enough that they can create adaptation and response, but also to the right sweet spot where we can actually still adapt and grow and return to what would be the new level of homeostasis. Guys, when I say homeostasis, some of you will know what that is, some of you won't know what that is. And just to give you some examples, so when your body is stressed, your body fights to return back to when it wasn't stressed, right? So a good example of that is body temperature. If you are very, very hot, what do? You sweat. If you are very, very cold, what do? You shiver, because that's your body's natural reaction to try and regain what would be normality or homeostasis, right? So under any circumstance, when your body is put in an environment and a situation where it is out of normality, it will always fight and prioritize to return to that. Okay. Now, what we want to do is be in a position, and this is where feedback is so, so important. We'll talk about strategies of how we manage fatigue later on. But this is why feedback data capture is so, so important, because if you're literally like head first in your training and just like, this is supposed to be hard, I'm hardcore, go hard or go home, all of that nonsense, right? You will be in a position where you aren't actually driving adaptation response. What you're doing is just driving an enormous amount of systemic stress that is going to drive, in all honesty, catabolism and regression as opposed to progression. Okay, does that all make sense? Yeah, good.
Okay, so causes of fatigue. So as Corey just touched on, there's a number of things, and they're not all training related. So it might be training. It could be the biggest. Oh,
speak up.
Is broken. Volume is the biggest driver. So if we have too much volume, and a lot of people think volume, we've had a lot of people come to us where they're doing 4 sets of 15, 5 sets of 15, 5 sets of 20 on exercises, German volume training, everything. If your volume is too high, you're going to struggle to recover from it, because it's going to drive so much systemic fatigue in the body. So volume is the biggest driver. Intensity, how far you take your sets. So we train everything to failure, but this is failure within control still. So it's about how we train to failure and taking a perfect last rep. not then taking an additional rep and an additional rep, which isn't a perfect rep, because often when you do that extra rep, you wriggle through the body, you're not actually engaging that muscle, you're causing a lot of fatigue throughout the rest of the body and actually not driving any direct fatigue to the muscle that you want, and you're just driving fatigue through the body. So that's another thing. Frequency, how much are you doing in your session? Are you doing 20 sets of one thing in one session, or are you splitting those 20 things up into 2 sessions of 10 things?
This is where, to cut over the tank very quickly, which I'll suffer for later. This is where understanding training approaches and splits specifically to, again, individual needs is super, super important. So again, if we're looking at, let's say just a baseline, 15, you all right?
Everyone?
You want to eat the plate as well, calm down. This is where 15 reps or 15 sets per body part is super, super important. And why is it important to break this down? Because if you were to do 15 sets on one specific muscle group in one specific session, how much damage do you think you would do to that muscle? A lot, right? Because all of you train super accurately, all of you train super hard, all of you have an enormous amount of intent. And you're also all, relative to yourselves, very, very strong, right? So the amount of trauma that's caused to a specific muscle group, to do 15 working sets, I'm talking about, this is balls to the wall. I could imagine that any given muscle group would be in tatters for not 1 day, not 2 days, but probably coming up to a week, maybe even more. Yeah. So then we say, right, okay, well, how can we dictate, how can we ensure that we're getting as much? And again, remember, in that circumstance, your body isn't focusing on repairing that muscle, it's focusing on trying to survive and return to homeostasis. Protein synthesis isn't a thing when your body is stressed. Don't give a shit. Yeah. So this is where we look at your split specifically and say, right, okay, well, if you've got 15 sets on one specific muscle group, why don't we split those 15 sets up into 2? Well, you can't do that directly, but maybe we could split up into 3. Okay, so maybe if we need to train chest and do 15 sets, we could do push 3 times a week, or we could incorporate 5 working sets in an upper session. And then we're in a position, well, if you think about your energy level on set 1 to set 15, how much energy do you think you'll have compared to set 1 to set 15? That energy tank will be depleted, right? So we're then talking about our ability to actually engage in sets. Okay, well, those 5 sets will be more productive because I'll have more energy to spend on those 5 sets than given over the 15. And for most of you, if any of you have come from the school of Jordan Peters, this is something that he swears by, is your ability to exert as much force, effort, stimulus, everything into every single movement. So don't be bold and say, well, I'll do a big chest session, I'll do 15 sets. Well, just train chest 3 times a week, because not only can you train harder over those 5 sets, you can actually recover from those 5 sets far more easy than 15 directly.
And your performance on each of them will be better.
Correct.
Yeah. So on top of that, we've got other things as well, such as your cardio. And that's not just like direct cardio, that can be steps, that can be your expenditure through your work on your feet, depending on what sort of job that you do. If you have a very demanding job where you are laboring all day as opposed to a job where you're sitting in the office, your general expenditure in the day is going to be more. That's going to drive fatigue. This is another reason why we try and split cardio up into different types, maybe some HIIT post workout, maybe less in the morning. So we're actually trying to manage elements of what we're doing in one go and also make those things more productive. A bit like training 15 sets in one go is not as productive as maybe doing 5 and 5 and 5. You can put more energy into it, therefore you've got time to recover from it, and then you can go again. So that's another thing. Life, so just daily workload in terms of maybe what's on your mind, how much stuff you've got to do in the day, not necessarily physical, but even mental, like that causes an enormous amount of fatigue. If any of you have ever been through a very, very stressful period before, mentally, you will know how tired this makes you. Often maybe that it'll make you lose weight or gain weight, or the amount of stress that causes on your body and the amount of fatigue that causes. Just because it's not physical doesn't mean that it's not demanding. how much sleep you're getting. Sleep is a massive one, and we were going to talk about sleep today, but I think it's probably something we'll go off the back of this on another one, as a proper topic, because it is a big one. But sleep, like, I don't think people realize how much damage lack of sleep and how we sleep and the environment we sleep in, the effect that has on our fatigue and our recovery. It's massive. So making sure that we're getting adequate sleep, a good sleep routine is really, really important. Our nutrition. So with our nutrition, are you eating enough? Are you not eating enough? Okay, in prep, the goal is fat loss, so you're eating a bit less, but a lot of people just generally, especially before they come to us, don't eat anywhere near enough to support their training needs, their training goals, even just their maintenance goals of each day of just trying to be alive and do what they need to do. Illness that causes fatigue, obviously not being very well, your body using additional energy to try and recover. Drugs, whether this be performance enhancing drugs or recreational, whatever. And then mental stresses, which I've already touched on as well. So fatigue types, do you want to talk about this?
No.
So different types of fatigue, we've got acute and chronic. So going kind of back to the previous slide of how we sort of get fatigue and what those are. Acute fatigue is like that initial fatigue. So something that makes you feel tired, whether that's training stimulus during your training or immediately after, maybe directly after your cardio, something that makes you feel like, wow, I feel fucked after that, like I'm tired. And then you've got chronic fatigue, which is this buildup of fatigue, which is this long lasting, it's cumulative. It's why we do things like deload. Life and training is the reason why these things happen, whether you've got a buildup of stress at work, you're overtraining and not eating enough, not getting enough recovery. You end up with this chronic fatigue and that builds up, and this is why we deload people. Katie's a good example last week. She said, I know I've not checked in yet, but I feel wrecked. Like I'm absolutely battered. My performance is stalling in the gym. I just feel terrible. Like my appetite's gone, blah, blah. I said, well, we probably need to deload. You're doing a lot. Let's take 3 days rest, blah, blah, blah. She checked in the next day. She lost some weight. And then I'm not sure how she's got on the last day or so, but I think you're doing all right on your mate. So we're
half a kilo now.
Yeah, go on,
so we deload, we take rest, and that's Katie coming away from no cardio. So I've taken all the cardio off her, taken all the training off her, told her to sit down for 2.5 days. And that's the response that we get. So that's a build-up of chronic fatigue.
Mads is exactly the same. Mads is deep into prep. She's 3 weeks out. She's the lightest, leanest, and most sensitive she's ever been. I literally have a fight with her in the garden every single morning to try and prevent her from going and doing cardio. And I've taken her off cardio for the past 3 days.
Yeah.
4 days. And yeah, over those 4 days, she's lost 1.6 kilos all in all. She lost a kilo last night. And she's on higher food as well. So Cal, do you know what? Cal is a perfect example. I love giving these examples, just so you know, guys, we're not actually just chatting shit. We do actually implement this. So Cal would get ill every 2 to 3 weeks. Like he'd have an unbelievable training run and then literally be ill.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you, Pettigrove?
Yes, mate. Yep.
So what's
Pettigrove?
Pettigrove.
Mm-hmm.
Shredded. You want to see the legs on the boy? So shoot coming. So with Cal specifically, we were starting to, and again, this is a monitoring thing. This is something we have to manage very closely.
It takes a while.
Yeah, and not only that, we have to implement, assess, then adjust. And this is the thing. So communication is key. Understanding, looking at data coming back and how they correlate. And we like me and Cal were like, you progress so much so fucking quickly. He has like a newbie gain situation, but to get that newbie gain situation and grow and develop so quickly, he has to go through like a week to 2 weeks of being ill. And it's like, put 7 kilos on, lose 4.
Yeah.
Put 3 kilos on, lose 7. So we actually ended up, he's literally got 1 working set for everything he does. I deload him every 3 weeks. So he does 3 weeks worth of training. On that 4th week, he literally sticks down, and I give him such high rep ranges to alleviate his ability to load. And that's something that has worked extremely well. Cal's been on, how long have you been on your shoot prep now?
I don't know, like 6 weeks, 8 weeks.
6 weeks. And bearing in mind, we prepped him for the British last year in 6, which we won, just saying. He is probably just as lean with an extra 4 kilos, and has literally glided through this fat loss phase due to our management of fatigue and stress, I would say, more than anything else. Do you agree?
Yeah, I'm sure.
So chronic fatigue is
But yeah, so they're two different types, and everybody builds fatigue differently. And this, if I'm being totally honest, is down to the individual in terms of 1, their recovery capabilities, and 2, to be honest, how hard they train. If you do not need a deload every 5 to 6 weeks, and this isn't pointing fingers at anybody, you either are not being honest enough on your checking form, or you ain't training hard enough, probably. Because we build fatigue, it's natural. We don't want to, but when we train progressively and we train hard, it's a byproduct of that. If we are adapting and we are training hard, a byproduct of that is fatigue and is tiredness. And if you are honest on your forms and you say, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that, like Corey said, it's not commendable to be like, no, I'm great, my motivation is 10 out of 10 out of 10 out of 10 every single day to train, because that's rubbish. Like, even I have days I get out of bed and like, I'm like, do you know what, I don't want to do today because I'm tired. Like, and you got to be honest about that. Like, if you're honest with that, you will be surprised how much rest you do actually need. So yeah, the
naivety is key, guys. Like, there's no the right answer is the honest one, as always, as I always say. And it's not to say like I think a 6-week marker is good from a deload standpoint. From what we know, how many people we've worked with, we can pretty much nail it every single time. However, your ability to apply yourself, but not only that, capture the data and give that true, honest feedback. If you're filling your check-in form out once a week before you check in, then you're in a position where I can guarantee you don't know how you felt on Monday night after your leg session. No. If you're filling out on Friday morning, like, you don't, because that honest, naive answer isn't there, which means we lose out on the data. So you actually aren't really that in tune. I was saying to Mads,
you lose out on potential progress.
100%. I was saying to Mads yesterday, my biggest amount of growth was when I literally lived to send my training videos to my coach, monitor my fatigue, monitor my performance, monitor everything. And because I was in a position where I was so in tune with how I felt and what I was doing, everything just works. And again, it's about nailing that sweet spot of the right amount of volume, the right amount of frequency that manages the right amount of fatigue.
And communication as well. Like, we only picked up on Katie needing a deload. It wasn't her check-in day, but she messaged me and said, Mads, I feel like this. I just did this session and it was fucking terrible. And I feel like this. I said, right, let's catch it now. Let's not wait till your check-in day, because you might be 3 days too late at that point, and you've got to catch these things when it's necessary. So she said, oh, well, I'm going on holiday next week, so should I just wait till my holiday? I said, absolutely not. Like, when you need to deload, you need to deload. It's irrelevant. So yeah, that communication is key.
So talking about, first off, hi, Ellie. She's muted. Yeah. Welcome. We're talking about fatigue. This is filmed, so you can catch up on the first half when you get time. So talking about fatigue effects specifically and what we can look out for. So decrease in speed and power speaks for itself. Decrease in learning new lifts. Now, neurological engagement is everything for me. And when you start to feel foggy, when you start to lose motivation, which for some people they find incomprehensible because they can't seem to understand that although they say they want to be bodybuilders and they say they want to compete and win the Olympia or just achieve their goals in general, it doesn't even have to be a competitive goal. When people say that, they find it hard to believe that they don't actually want to go to the gym. Like, no shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can be tired. That is allowed. Okay. So neurological engagement is everything for me. And as soon as that fog starts to appear, and it does, you've got to be honest with yourself and say, well, do you know what? It's not a problem. Me and Steve had this conversation at the show yesterday. He used to stress out about certain situations, whether it be weight gain or weight loss or what he looked like and how his check-in looks. And now he's like, it's part of the process. Like, it's cool. Like, if my weight goes up, it goes up. My weight goes down, it goes down. And we'll just manage it and adjust as we need to, as we always have and as we always will. So this is not the time. I think lifts are a good indicator. If you are struggling to engage on lifts, if you are struggling to get that mind muscle connection, if a movement for you just always feels right and all of a sudden it feels heavy, it feels like lead, you feel like lead, you can't move it, you can't switch on for it, you can't switch on for a hack squat, you're probably in a position where you're nearing maximized accumulated fatigue. Okay. An effective fatigue is also decreasing strength, obviously. Your logbook will be a good indicator for that. So if you're not tracking your numbers, how do you know if you are progressing or not? Decrease in anabolic process. So these two are very, very interesting. And I talk about chemical balance all the time. Now, these two processes, AMPK and mTOR, are the biggest either enablers or hindrances to you being able to drive anabolic response, growth, or not. Now, mTOR is the main pathway, a mechanism to drive muscle protein synthesis. So, guys, muscle protein synthesis grows muscle. It is your ability to drive new muscle tissue on your body. So you're training delts because you're a pretty little bikini girl, or you're a pretty little bodybuilder, because you need those, and you're like, fuck, I feel fucked. That's all right. I'm going to do one more set and I'm not going to tell Corey or Mads, and I'm going to carry on. Okay, brilliant. Well, you're trying to grow muscle by doing that. We're trying to improve, right? mTOR is massively decreased when fatigue is in play. Okay. So if you aren't getting any mTOR processes or mechanism and pathways being signaled, then you aren't growing. So training through fatigue is a waste of fucking time. You might as well not even be in the gym. Okay. Now, increasing catabolic processes. Now, for those who don't know what catabolism is, it's basically saying goodbye to the muscle that you already do have. Okay. Now, AMPK again is a chemical response that drives increase in glycogen and fatty acid uptake. Okay, so what is that good? Yes, but no, because for you as an individual, you need to be in a position where your body can process the nutrients that you're uptaking in an optimal manner. If it's overactive, then what it does is it starts overutilizing the glycogen stores and the triglyceride stores and the fat stores that you've got. And then what else is it going to do when you're on prep and you haven't got a lot of glycogen, you haven't got a lot of carbohydrates in, you haven't got a lot of fat in? What's it going to start taking? Muscle. So fatigue is a massive, massive driver for the response in body composition. Guys, some of you will know, some of you won't know. When you start to stall out on prep and you start to realize that you're actually starting to look worse than better, it's because you're having a massive drop in mTOR, protein synthesis signaling, and a massive increase in AMPK, which are both drivers of decrease in anabolic processes, your ability to retain muscle, and your ability to actually prevent muscle loss, which is why you start to look flat, just why you start to look feeble, why you start to look skinny and shit. Okay, so for anyone that thinks it's a good idea to train through fatigue, you're not growing and you're actually losing muscle. So hopefully that's that's like a mic drop situation, but I'm going to continue anyways. I love the sound of my own voice. It also will increase your potential for injury and illness. On to the next one.
Me, yeah.
On you, B.
So signs of fatigue, I think we've kind of covered this already, but this is the sort of stuff that is on your tracker, and this is why it's on your tracker, because we want to know this stuff. And like we said earlier, you're not a hero for saying, yeah, my strength's going up, I've progressed in my session, my sleep's amazing, digestion's good, my motivation's 10 out of 10, I feel fucking wicked. Like, if you don't, then you don't. Sit when you fill it in at the end of the day and be honest about how you feel. did you actually progress in all your sessions in the gym? Did you just progress in one movement and everything else felt shit? Then write in your notes that was the case. Sleep. How was your sleep? Like there's a thing there for quality of sleep. Now, if you have an Oura ring or something, it'll tell you the quality of your sleep. So you don't even have to think about it, but it'll also give you your energy. And you want to know, like, what's your energy like when you wake up? Like, I can tell you very, very accurately in the moment how I feel and how I sleep every single day. Like, I wake up every single day at the moment and pretty much say to Corey, that was a shit night's sleep. I feel shit. Wake up at 5 o'clock every day, ready to get out of bed. Like, I'm not sleeping, I'm not rested. And I can be honest about that. And I can tell you pretty much exactly where my energy is for the day within about 15 minutes of getting up and moving around. So like, you got to be honest about that. And your digestion as well. Like, we know where our digestion is. Like, it's our own bodies. Like, you know, if you go into the toilet once or twice a day, you know what's normal, you know what's not, you know, if you've got a bit of bloating, you know, if you've got gas, you know, if something isn't sat on you very well, and you know that. And if you're honest with yourself that you haven't cheated on your diet and you're eating all the food you normally do, but suddenly your digestion's not great, and like, that's one of, I would say, Corey's first things to go if he needs to deload and is super high in stress. His digestion goes absolutely to shit. So, excuse the pun. So you know what is normal and what is not. So be honest about that. Like, if your digestion ain't normal, tick the box and write a note to say why it's not. Motivation to train. Like, my motivation to train at the moment is probably somewhere in the middle of the park most days because my energy is low. I still want to get at it in the gym, but actually the thought at the moment of getting under a weight most of the time makes me feel sick, like, because I'm tired and the energy isn't there. But some people are like, my energy's good, I'm eating loads, I can't wait to smash my session. And then you probably are a 10 out of 10. But if it's not quite there because you think, God, I feel like I really don't even want to lift a 20k plate up, like, be honest about it. Energy, like, where's that? Heart rate is a good one to track. And also, if you have an Oura ring, it tracks your temperature, and you can often see on your readiness, like, if I have a couple of days when my temperature sat a little bit higher, it's usually when I'm not feeling so great, and actually the time's quite nicely when I feel like I need a deload. So your internal temperature will increase a little bit, your sleep might be a bit worse, and your heart rate is usually slightly elevated, your resting heart rate. So pay attention to these things. How's your mood? I can tell you my mood's pretty dog most of the time in it, at the moment. No. Like, I don't do too badly, but generally, like, unless I've eaten and I'm sort of waiting to have a meal or I'm ready to go to bed, like, my mood is pretty low.
So it's always the most enjoyable part of my day when Mads starts cooking, because that's when I come alive. I'm like, Mads, you have 200 grams chicken, right? It's 100 grams. Oh, okay, no worries, my bad.
Wind up.
Yeah.
And then your appetite, like, you'd think that when you're tired, you get more hungry, and when you're fatigued, you get more hungry, but a lot of the time this goes through the floor. Mine probably spikes, whereas Corey's tends to go through the floor and he looks at a bowl of food and doesn't want to eat it. So it's interesting how this affects different people, but be honest with yourself, sit and think, how was my appetite today? Like, you can be very blind to just ticking the boxes sometimes, but ask yourself, like, genuinely, when you tick these boxes on your form every day, like, how do I feel? Like, it's not there for us, it's not there for the fun of it. Like, it is there for us to track. That is the point of it. So make sure you're honest with that, because if we are honest with it, like, we can be a little bit more realistic about if you actually need to deload and what you actually need to do. But don't just be lazy and take it as like, well, if I put everything shit, maybe they'll let me sit down for a week. Like, be honest about how you feel. Yeah.
There's a is it on there? No, there's a good yeah. So in terms of how we would rate these things, I think a scale is always very, very good. Scale on 1 to 10 is how I learn. For anybody that's ever taken a personal training course, and how hard was that from 1 to 10? And how hard was that from 1 to 10? And it's true, and that's the best way to measure things. Like, an Oura ring is fantastic, but a good point made that me and Mads actually had a conversation about as well was all of this data on the Oura ring and these Fitbits are fantastic. Well, you wake up in the morning and it tells you had a shit night's sleep. Well, doesn't that start your day well? Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't. So being in a position where you can sort of assess your own situation and assess that 1 to 10 scale of your motivation, your energy, things that massively drive. I think one of the best readings for me if I'm fatigued is my grip strength. You guys will know when you're tired, picking up a 20 kilo plate or a 10 kilo plate, or whatever it is relative to yourselves, picking that plate up to load it on the bar, if that feels heavy, you're fucked. Like, genuinely. If you are struggling to move plates around, load and unload without even having to press or extend or do anything else, that is a perfect way to determine, do you know what? I reckon I'm a little bit tired, you know, and then we're gonna look to pull back. So these are good signs of fatigue. We've got strength, progression, obviously, sleep, digestion, motivation, energy, heart rate, mood, appetite, libido, a menstrual cycle. Now, these are definitely prominent in fat loss phases and quite aggressive fat loss phases. I won't ask anybody to put their hand up, of course, but this is something that is true and massively. Really? This Adonis next to you. Married now. So this is something that is massively true. And the reason for that, quite simply, guys, if you are in a fat loss phase, if you are in a position where, again, your body is constantly trying to resume homeostasis to survive and normality, your body isn't thinking about reproducing. It isn't thinking about your ability to procreate. It's thinking, where the fuck is my next meal coming from? And how the fuck am I going to get through the next hour? That's what it's thinking. Not, you know what? I look like a babe today. I reckon I could go out and pull. So how do we manage it? How do we manage fatigue, guys? How do we manage it for you guys? So again, implement, assess, adjust. We can completely rest, no training, no cardio, eat. We can do refeeds, we can do deloads, we can adjust training volume. And auto-regulation is something I do with a lot of my guys. Obviously, I can't speak for Mads specifically, but I know me and Mads have been speaking about some of the programming that she wants to implement for some of the girls actually on this course. So good luck for that. But auto-regulating volume in particular and thinking, do you know what? I'm actually putting you in the ground a little bit too soon. Let's pull back a little bit so we can be more productive in a training block. A training block isn't a training block if you train for 2 weeks and need a deload. Like, you need to be able to accumulate some type of progression. That's in numbers, that's in everything. Okay. We could always also look at readjusting and reevaluating nutrition. We can manage it through recovery processes, i.e. massage, and relaxation and downtime. So are you in a position where you're constantly go? Could you do with a night off the gym? Are you in a position where, do you know what, a rest day to be able to just take a step back, sit down, have a bubble bath, turn the candles on, Cal, and just chill? I know Cal does that every Wednesday. Between 6 and 8 is his bath time. Nobody disturbs him, puts his phone on and has whale music, don't you, Cal?
Yeah, mate, especially that I'm natural as well, yeah.
You need it. So that isn't supposed to be on there. Questions? Talk to me. Wow, there's 5 people commenting. Oh, good. Guys, what do we think? Stop. Just. How many people have been in that position where they think, do you know what? I felt like my grip strength has gone, or I felt like absolute shit, and I felt like I potentially probably overtrained and took it.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Would you say from what we've discussed today that you would still stand behind the fact that it's actually very, very unproductive and not productive to plow through?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I need to be a bit more better at communicating, I think, definitely. But because obviously a lot of the time, like in the past, I've just played through it. I think I just kind of go numb to it a bit, and not really realizing that I am like really fatigued, but I probably am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think with you in particular, we'll get. Has Ellie put her hand up? I love that. We'll come to you now, Ellie. 2 seconds. So with you in particular, again, like, guys, like, we know what you're doing. Like, we write your plan. We don't just fucking guess. Do you know what I mean? So when it comes to like Ben, for example, talking about his training, Well, I know that him and Katie pretty much do, if not all, most of their sessions together. Well, if Katie's in the floor, and all right, Ben might be a little bit stronger and a little bit more muscle.
And Katie probably
But-
trained
but Katie sends more training videos, but it's fine because Ben's training videos are very, very good. So for Ben, for example, I'm like, right, okay, well, if Katie's in the floor, you've got to be close, if not worse, right? But you're not telling me that, you haven't fed that back. But I know that he's going on holiday very, very soon. So if I can preserve him, because I can't force information out of you. I also can't determine things off the back of zero information and data, because otherwise that's just guesswork. So I'm in a position where I'm like, right, well, I know productively, if he goes on holiday in a week or 2 weeks, well, if I don't make any drastic changes to his plan, I'm in a position where I won't cause and drive any more stress. As a result, he'll be able to use that extra energy and expenditure for his training, and then we can deload him whilst he's on holiday. Perfect. All works perfectly fine. However, did he need a deload 2 weeks ago? Probably. But we'll see, because when he goes on holiday and he comes back, we'll have a look at him and we'll say, well, you look 10 times better for having the rest.
See you later,
Interesting. See you later. Peace. So yeah, I think information is good, but we're always going to know. We're always going to have an idea, and if you don't tell us, we'll probably put you on a deload eventually. Ellie?
Hey, sorry, I was just going to say that I just found this really useful, because I'm people that can be very self-sabotaging. So if I feel tired and I feel like I need a rest, I'm the kind of person that will push on, because otherwise I feel like I'm a bit of a failure or I won't make progress. So this for me has been really really helpful. I mean, it sounds so simple when you say it, but we just don't take it on board. So it's really helpful to me, because I won't feel as guilty that I need a rest.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same, or I was exactly the same, up until the point where I actually took a rest and I realized that actually trusting that rest process and seeing the difference. And I think that's the thing, like the proof is in the pudding, Ellie, like genuinely. You've got to have confidence, and the only way you're going to gain confidence is by actually having experience, right? So if you're in the floor and you don't tell Mads, but Mads works it out anyway and puts you on a deload, she thinks you look fatigued, and then you follow that process, you have 2 days off training, you have a refeed, you have a high day, blah, 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 whatever. And then 3 days later, you're like, oh my God, I've lost, and you're in a fat loss phase and you've lost 1 kilo from doing that, from doing less, but that you lose more. All of a sudden you're going to be like, well, fucking hell, like that was productive. I'm quite up for that now. But in your mind, what you're thinking is, well, if I take a step back and if I take my foot off the pedal, maybe I won't make more progress.
Yeah,
or maybe
exactly
it might be hard to get that going. Yeah.
It is a learning and trusting
super difficult. Super difficult.
Like Katie learned, like last year when she came on with us for prep, and she was like, oh, you want me to sit down and eat all this when I get fat? And I was like, no, you'll be fine. And then she lost 1 kilo and she was like, oh, fucking hell, that's good, isn't it?
Brilliant.
That's fucking brilliant. We'll do a bit more of that. And now she's quite happy to say to me, I feel fucked, and I'll get to sit down. And unfortunately, she didn't get any more food.
Yeah, I was going to say,
she didn't get extra food, but she sat down for 3 days and she's like, oh, I've lost weight. Oh, that's good. Oh, I feel better. Actually, I don't feel as trashed. I'm smiling again now. Oh, my weight's come down. I'm just checking. Oh, Katie's lost over 1 kilo in a week. There you go. So like happy days. So much better, because we've pulled back, and off the back of this, I'll probably pull a bit of volume out of Katie's training, because it's not productive to have it that high, because it's putting her in the floor a bit earlier than I'd like it to be. So that's a learning curve for us, and then I can adapt that for her, and then anybody else still you will make those adjustments. But yeah, Francesca, got your hand up. I think that's deliberate.
This hand up thing.
I did. Hello, sorry, I'm driving, so if it goes a bit in and out, I do apologize. So yeah, I was just wanting to bring up the whole deload thing. This is something that is obviously very individual to a person, and as a coach, you know, like you both learn together and you know when to pull back, you know when to have a deload. But this was something that is like a fresh thing for me coming on with you guys, because my previous coach, and I don't know if anyone's had the same experience, but I had training blocks of 6 weeks, religiously 6 weeks, like not a rotation, just, you know, you do your 5 sessions Monday to Sunday. If you miss a session, tough shit, you just start again the next week. But every 6 week was a scheduled deload. Now, at the beginning, I thought this was really strange because it's like, well, what if I don't need it, right? So what ended up happening was I would go through 6 weeks, take the deload because it was scheduled, even though I knew myself I didn't really need it, but I was told that, I mean, this is how it works. Okay, fair enough. And then I guarantee within 1 or 2 weeks, say my periods hit, whatever's going on, like I am fucking smashed. I was like, well, shit, it's only like week 2, week 3. I can't take a deload now because I just had one like 1 or 2 weeks ago. And then it was like such a struggle to push all the way through just to get that deload at the week 6 again. And then I'd be struggling for like 2, 3, 4 weeks and then wonder why my lifts regressed or I didn't lose any fat or like the scale weight went up. And it was just a complete mess and it just did not work for me at all. So coming on with MADS, like I've had, I think, 1 extra rest day, or there's been times where I know myself, I've had a shit sleep, I've had this, I've had that, and I'm like, right, I will take a rest day. And it just works so much better. And I just wish I'd known all this sooner, you know, because it really does make a difference.
Massively. No, I completely agree. So I was exactly the same. So my first bodybuilding season as a junior bodybuilder in 2019, I trained every single day, my entire prep. And I literally prepped for 33 weeks until I ruptured the ligament in my L4 and L5.
Yeah, I was about to say injuries occur. I did the same thing.
I prepped. I did extremely well to win, and it was fantastic. And I had a really good season. But going back to this point here, if I can share my screen, shit, where's it gone? There it is. Right. Poor stimulus creates no adaptation and growth. Too much stimulus creates no adaptation and growth. So if you're in a position where you're literally dancing between the two, Fran, like no wonder, because if you're premeditating your idea of, okay, well, or if you're not premeditating, but your coach is and saying, well, you're going to need a deload at 6 weeks. So if you don't need a deload at 6 weeks and you take a deload, well, it's poor stimulus, which creates no adaptation and growth, because you need to train harder or train longer rather, because it may only take another 2 weeks. And then what you're in a position of is because you take a deload early, you actually recover from the marginal amount of fatigue you've created. You pull back, but then you jump back in on the same amount of stress that you were on at week 6 last time, and then you accumulate fatigue even faster, which puts you straight in a hole.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, can I quickly interject? Just because thinking of what you were saying, the 6 weeks deload thing, that's because that's a crossover between strength and conditioning world and bodybuilding, because in strength and conditioning, a deload is usually prescribed between 6 and 8 weeks, depending on the training block that you're doing. But that's done based on periodized training. So everything will be, you'll start on a percentage of a 1 rep max, and you'll build up accumulatively across a block. And then you'll deload. And that's on the assumption that because you're going through a periodized training block, your training stimulus increases every week. And as a result, your fatigue increases every week. But where the crossover that people get mistaken with bodybuilding is that because bodybuilding, well, specifically how we're training it, is to failure every set or every session, the accumulative fatigue is built up quicker. And as a result, we're doing things on an auto-regulatory basis. So the 6 weeks deload thing isn't necessarily wrong. If anything, it's actually correct from a strength and conditioning perspective. But when we're bodybuilding, it becomes more auto-regulatory because there's different factors at play. And then also the 6 to 8 week training block and then deload is on the assumption that you're not only nutrition, but so training is accumulative and progressive over a periodized block as mentioned, but then that's on the assumption that sleep is 100%, nutrition is 100%, so on and so forth. Whereas obviously on day-to-day living for most people that work full-time jobs that aren't athletes, aren't full-time paid athletes, where this is their job to, you know, wake up certain time, train certain time, eat certain time, go to bed, repeat. It's harder to have that set in stone, so it just becomes auto-regulatory.
Far too many variables that are different all the time. And with the individual, as Tom's touching on there, that is basing on the individual's work rate of every single one being the same, and then all of their other variables such as sleep, what job they do, how stressful that job is, how demanding that job is, what their general day-to-day life is like, what they're eating, etc., etc. So yeah, it's pre-setting something where all other variables aren't set and are too different all the time. So it's just like Tom says, in bodybuilding, realistically, like it's just not optimal to manage like that. And actually, I think it's kind of, I don't like to say lazy, but I think it because it's like, oh, that's predetermined, off you go. Well, you can't say that everything's always going to be as you wish it to be, and therefore you need to manage people more closely than that.
It's like me saying to you, Fran, you're in a fat loss phase now. This is your plan for the next 16 weeks. These are your changes every week that I want you to make. You're going to be like, well, hold on a minute. So what are you doing for the next 16 weeks? Like there's no management there at all. Everything, nothing can be predetermined. I'm so grateful that Tom made that point, because so accurate. Like everything is measured on a percentage basis in training blocks. That's not how bodybuilding is done. Bodybuilding is a
coaches do that.
No, listen, if you're training in, but even from a reps and reserve standpoint, if you're looking at a mesocycle,
I was gonna say reps and reserve in it.
Yeah, 5 weeks on, 1 week off. I followed that training plan, and it is still not, it still can't be predetermined, because I can tell you for a fact that my ability to drive load and stimulus is far greater than some Joe Blogs. So if you're on a 5 week, if I'm on a 5 week block, I need, and a 6 days on, 1 day off, I need more than 6 days on a devolumized approach to try and recover from that, to be in a position where I can go back in on the working weight that I was on week 6. Facts.
Yeah, load exposure matters massively, because like, for example, like my girlfriend Ellie, like isn't massively strong, relatively strong, but isn't massively strong. Like she'd probably go for like an 8 week block quite easily. Whereas like you say, someone like Callum needs like a deload every 4 weeks because of the load exposure.
Yeah. And an ability to train accurately as well. Like if you're like, if anybody's on this call, if your accuracy improves, your ability to drive stimulus improves as well. Now that with increased percentage load, every single session causes more damage. So you as a biological individual today with X amount of muscle and X amount of stress will require different recovery protocols this time next year when you've got more muscle and you're stronger.
Would you agree, Francesca, and obviously this is going on past 10 now, so I want to keep it a bit sweet and have to have some questions, but would you agree, Francesca, that now your training, must I say, is improved and better, more accurate, etc., as well, you actually feel fatigue more regularly and appreciate the need for those rest days and understand that fatigue a bit better, and are more appreciative of it now and need it more regularly than you did before as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Like from a training perspective, like the level of my training has increased massively, because I think the reps and reserve, so that is what I used to train like, it was sometimes just really hard to be like, am I 2 away, 3 away, 4 away, 1 away? And it could be technically my second week and I should be 3 reps away from failure. And I would hit failure and then be like, oh my God, I've hit failure, this is terrible. And it just gets in your head, because you're prescribed a certain thing to do. So the training to failure means I am actually pushing myself every single time. This
is where the education of the coach implementing this stuff is missed, because as a coach implementing reps and reserve, you also need to instill accuracy and execution and your ability to determine what is a perfect rep, right? So if you're not consistently performing in exactly the same way, 4 second eccentric, 1 second pause, whatever you determine that perfect rep to be, whatever he determines that to be, then you can't physically understand what is reps in reserve, because you don't understand what is a perfect rep and not. you don't know when to put it back. So for me, I had 18 months, probably the best part of 2 years of filming every single set, standardizing form, being in a position where I know how a squat should look, I know how a squat should feel. So when I'm coming down on, if it's an 8 to 10 and I'm 3 reps in reserve, when I get to 9 and I'm like, could I do that perfect rep again? No, put it back. Do you know what I mean? So that's where the education is lost as well, because your ability to perform now is fucking incredible. If you turned your hand to reps in reserve now, although I don't agree with the training style specifically for all the ones that I've tried, if you turned your hand to that now, your ability to move through that mesocycle will be so much more efficient, but you'd also do more damage because your accuracy is better.
Yeah, reps in reserve is one of those things where I just think it's like, it's better suited to like really advanced people anyway, because until you've trained like to failure, and I mean like true failure, like nosebleed, like pass out sort of failure, like you're not gonna know what your failure point is anyway. So like a lot of people that are like, oh yeah, I'm training to failure, are actually training like a fucking 7 RPE. So it's not even close to failure. So it's better to just prescribe training to failure unless you've got someone, nice one, that knows exactly what they're doing.
Tell Tom.
But no, Fran, no, you bang on, and that's the thing, and it is frustrating, and also, like I said, it has certain doggy. It has this place, I think, from a predetermined volume / stimulus / response and adaptation standpoint. However, I don't think it's an optimal way to train. I think it takes you away from your ability to really exert yourself and perform. Having anything preset, in my opinion, bar your rep range and your sets is I don't really agree with it. So none of you be having reps in reserve, by the way. Progressive overload. Woo!
But yeah, has anyone got any more questions?
Is everyone happy?
Looks like it.
Oh my goodness. A lot of people are training.
Good, isn't it?
Stuart Denny's getting at it. Guys, I really enjoyed this. We're going to do the announcement for the guys here, by the way. I think it's probably important to do this now very quickly for the ones that are here. So obviously, you guys know that there is a change coming in Raw coaching. We're splitting the coaching from Raw Elite and Raw Life. So obviously, just being able to keep the lifestyle coaches, lifestyle clients supported, and elite clients supported, all that sort of stuff. Nothing changes for any single individual client on Raw Coach at this very moment in time. So obviously you can look at that and it's like coaching's changing, Raw coaching's changed. It's like fucking hell, like, all right, and we're getting a new coach. Well, who am I getting? Nobody being coached by me and Maddie at this very moment in time. That is not going to change. It's predominantly for moving forward and new clients coming in. Obviously, we are hiring a coach, and that coach is on the call, and his name is Tom Green.
Loves it.
Hey.
Did everyone already know that?
I don't know. Maybe they guessed. So obviously, Tom's been we definitely did. Tom's been a client for a rather long time. It's been a conversation that we've had a number of times. I personally think it's a great choice. He's extremely excited. I'm extremely excited. I hope all of you guys are as well. Again, to be honest, it doesn't really change anything for anyone else who is being coached, bar the fact that obviously Tom will now be a part of the business. So we'll be working on education, things like that. He is coming in as an educator / coach for the marathon paragraph that he just gave us about training blocks and strength and conditioning and muscle hypertrophy and bodybuilding. But so yeah, I wanted to let you guys know, just so you're aware. Tom is now part of the business. So welcome, Tom, new coach / educator for the lifestyle.
Hey, welcome.
Dankeschön.
So yeah, anyway, I'll leave it there. Sorry, I just did it like that, Tom. But obviously people are on, and it's a good opportunity.
There'll be obviously
there'll be a proper announcement, of course.
And we've got a new website and everything dropping later as well, so go and check it out.
that will eventually have an education portal on there, and all manner of other things, but we'll update you all. But yeah, thank you very much for everyone that is on here supporting, because Raw Coaching is vastly becoming very, very successful, busy, and it's genuinely due to the people that are on the call and showing up every day and giving us opportunities to do what we like, love. And yeah, before I cry, yeah, thank you very much. Honestly, it means the world. We're far beyond where I ever thought the brand would be, and it's incredible. So I'm very, very grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm grateful for the opportunity as well.
Us too. So, all right, well, you can all go and do your cardio now, or eat your greens and all that sort of fun stuff that we make you do. Lots of love to you all. If you need anything, as always, let us know. Next week we will do, following on from this, a Zoom on sleep, which is fucking huge. So bring your notepads and pens and all that good stuff, and we'll see you next week. If you need anything, let us know.
See you later, guys.
Thanks.
See you later, guys.
See you later.
Bye. Bye.